Good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me. Welcome to another Cars and Coffee. And can anybody guess what our subject is today? Let's see a right hands. Steve, you put your hand up first because this is your subject. Today we're going to talk about some head and neck restraints and also some belts. So with that, I need to get a little more comfortable. Helmet hair. Everybody that's worn a helmet knows all about helmet hair. Okay, welcome to Cars and Coffee again. I'm Kenny Brown, and for the next hour, we're going to talk about some interesting things. I mean, the tech subject today is going to be head and neck restraint as well as some harnesses. Let's see, this for the show and tell. I've got the ultimate club racing and track day coil-over shock setup. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Speed Therapy Society and answer a few of your questions. Now, you might notice that it looks different. Okay, well, it looks different because we're changing a few things. We're getting ready for the Speed Therapy Academy. We've actually gone to a camera instead of my phone, which hopefully you can see things the real way and a little clearer. So that's kind of like the big thing. The other big thing is we are simulcasting live on YouTube. I remember I talked about that we're going to try to do this for a couple weeks. Well, Carrie finally slayed the technology dragon, and we should be live on YouTube as well as live on Facebook. So this is like a big day. So let's see what else. Oh, artwork of the month. And Ernie was complaining that I didn't change the artwork. So we went over to down into the basement in storage, and we dug out 6 additional works of art that we'll be featuring as time goes on. And so for right now, today's work of art is actually, I'm breaking away from my normal artist. And this is, I'll try not to kill his name, Hector Capitori, something like that. Anyway, this is Dan Gurney at Spa in 1967. And anybody, Formula One buff, knows that this is Dan Gurney's victory, the only victory for American car and American driver in Formula One. And he was driving his own Gurney Eagle with the Westlake V12. And I think, if memory serves, the engine just barely made it to the end of the race, but nevertheless, it made it to the end of the race. So I thought that'd be kind of cool because seeing as Formula One started again. Well, I really wanted to watch Formula One qualifying this morning, except, you know, we had to get ready for this. So I'll wait for the race tomorrow. And this is Cars and Coffee. I got my coffee. So how many people out there are new to Cars and Coffee? Raise your hand. Well, yeah. Put your little thing in there and let us know. And I got some other questions. You always have this thing to read off of because I always screw up if I don't. I got a question for you guys. We're thinking about for the summer of moving Cars and Coffee from 11 o'clock to 10 o'clock in the morning. I'd like to hear your feedback on that. You know how to do the whole feedback thing. Eastern Standard Time. Okay. And then here we're getting into the stuff I have to do before I do the other stuff. For the YouTube, our new YouTube fans, let's see, you need to click the bell next to the subscription subscription button. Okay, you need to click the bell next to.
You have to click the subscription button, and then if you want to receive.
Oh, you click the subscription button, and then if you want to receive announcements, you click the bell. Got that right. You can see who's even worse at technology than Carrie. And for our Facebook people, you need to click the like. Is that what it is? Mm-hmm. Click the like, as well as the thumbs up and the hearts, wrenches. And then for replays, well, you know that we're always going to have the replay in the Speed Therapy Society, as well as on Kenny Brown TV YouTube, or YouTube Kenny Brown TV, however you want to talk about it. Let's see, I got that. Page 2. I'm really moving through this morning. Uh, I need to mention Speed Therapy Academy. The reason this is looking different is because we're actually getting ready for the Speed Therapy Academy. We're going to need a little wider range for the camera so we can show more things, and that's where we're sort of practicing, because that starts August 4th. If you haven't signed up, if you really want to learn a lot more, you sign up for the Academy. It's going to be pretty interesting. 12 weeks, at least 8 to 10 times a week, but not to worry if you can't make all of them, because they will be in the library sources. You can go back and view them anytime. In fact, for the inaugural class, all the episodes will be recorded in the library now, stated for a full year after from this August to August of 2021. So it's always going to be a resource guide for you, no matter. And of course, we talked about our I see things backwards. I got to get used to that. Our Speed Therapy Academy shirt. This is actually a prototype. We've got the real ones are on the way in, but the notebooks have arrived. I don't know if you can see that. Speed Therapy Academy notebook. This is actually Mark White's notebook, and because he was the first one to sign up, so we thought we'd show his notebook first. And it's going to be. I'm going to set this up so it's set up so there's like 15 sections in here. And you can actually organize it however you want, by episode, by subject. It's what's going to be easiest for you. And we're going to be also every week, there's going to be something to download in the resource guide. All sorts of little things that are kind of cool and helpful, and some you might think are stupid, but you'll be surprised. So if you haven't signed up, if you're really interested in learning a lot more, please sign up. We're going to have this kind of segues into the subject this morning of head and neck restraints and belts. We got together with a good friend of ours, Ben O'Connor, who we've known for decades. Basically, we knew him when he was back with Bear Racing when we first started using Bear brakes in the 90s, and he's switched over to Impact. And actually, it's a couple of companies, but he's kind of like the safety guy. And he was kind enough to send over some samples for us so we could show you on the safety side. Because this was Steve's question. Let's see, I'm planning on replacing the wide racing belts installed in my car. Maybe Kenny can cover some thoughts in general on race belts, shoulder straps, crotch mounting, configurations, philosophies, and also the Hans device and how it works. Well, your request is our command. So also, let's start into that. So we start off with, let's go to head and neck restraint. Pretty much known as a Hans device, and the purpose of this is your seat belts go through this channel right here. And of course, it sits on your shoulders. They come in two sizes, medium and large. And these clip to your helmet so that in a frontal impact, rather than your neck slapping, snapping, your head snapping off your neck, this holds it in place, which is really, really good for reducing neck and head injuries. It's the one we're going to have these on our website, and the brand is actually, you can see that Stand 21. That is one of the premier safety companies, and we're really, really excited and proud to have those on our website. So that's kind of like the what everybody calls Hans, but it's head and neck restraint, and that's kind of how it hooks up. It's at first you're going to think it's pretty cumbersome, but once you get used to it, it's not bad. Now, if anybody that's in the advanced class and going really fast, I strongly, strongly recommend you get the head and neck restraint. You just never know. It's not about going fast. It's the unintended stopping that's a problem. So if you're in the advanced group going fast, certainly you need to get one. Even if you're intermediate and starting to go faster and faster, and your wife is complaining, that might belay her fears if you get a Hans type device. So I'm going to be safe. because I know wives have a thing about that. So, I mean, that's something to look at. Also, in helmets, you always want to look for the newest Snell rating, and the Snell is the safety rating. The current one, I think, is Snell 15. And I think we're going to put a couple of helmets up on our website that are pretty reasonably priced as far as helmets go. And then also, we're going to put some restraints up, and of course, the Hans device. So let's talk about restraints. Now, when I started racing, all there was a 3-inch shoulder, a 3-inch lap, and the kind of like the latch type thing. And you know, I raced with that for years and years and years and years. And in recent times, they've gone to what's called a cam lock, which is a lot easier to use. Now, for what we're going to have on the website, we're going to have two types. We're going to have like a competition type of harness, and we're also going to have what I call rally type, which are a 4-point with a regular, like a clips like a seat belt. So they're really, really easy to deal with getting in and out of the car. And for track days, they're more than adequate. I think there's going to be a couple brands of those. There's going to be some O&P. One is like with the straight straps that go over the shoulder, so you can wrap it around a harness bar or a roll cage, or go all the way to the back on the floor. And the other is kind of like it's a 3-point, so it'll come together and then go back to 1 point. It's just a little note. When you put seat belts, track or harness belts in your car, and so your seat's sitting like this and you're over here, you never want to come over the seat and straight down. Never, ever do that. You always want to come over the seat and back at an angle. It just has to do with the mechanics of what happens when you do have an incident. So never straight down to the floor. I see a lot of people do that, and you shouldn't always back. And we also have, which is pretty cool, the Schroet, which is sort of my favorite 4-point. And the reason for that is they have the special technology in one of the shoulder straps. It's kind of like folded over with a stitching, so that in the event of impact, rather than your body doing a full force like down, it'll actually let go and your body will twist. We've used Schroet belts for, God, I can't remember how long we've been using it for, but they've come out with something even cooler. It's their quick fit. And it's like the harness belts clip into the rear seat belts. I mean, the rear seat belt things. So you just clip them into the rear seat belts, which is pretty easy. In the front seat belt, you only have to mount one mounting point in the front. So there's a couple of different times of what I call rally belts, the 4 points, which are absolutely perfectly fine for track days. I mean, they work great. And then even if you don't have a racing seat, I strongly recommend a good set of harness belts. You will be blown away how much easier and quicker your driving will be if you got harness belts. So rather than trying to use that leg against the outside of the car and the other leg against the console, or maybe your elbow to hold yourself in place, all that goes away. You just focus on driving, which is the important part. Drive, drive, drive. So if you don't have harness belts, I really suggest it's a really good. Once you get past novice, you really need to be thinking about improving more than just your car, but also not only safety, but how good it works. Oh, I got a note. Okay. Now, what I'm going to talk about, we're going to get into competition belts now. Our good friend Ben sent the, see that? It comes in its own little bag. The Stand 21 shoulder device. Now, this is a competition 5-point. I know it looks like an octopus right now, but it's 2-inch. The lap belts are 2-inch. The shoulder straps are 2-inch, and it's a 5-point, which means you got 1 lap belt, 2 lap belts, 1 shoulder, 2 shoulders, and 1 submarine or crotch. Now the anti-submarine, it started being anti-submarine, like in Formula cars in a crash. If they only had a 4-point belt in a frontal impact, it would like slide down. They'd submarine underneath their belts. So the anti-sub belt was to help reduce that. But also, even more importantly, in sedans, that's not a big of an issue. But with the lower belt, it really helps keep the belt centered low on your waist. so the belts don't creep up. They keep your belt down, which is really important. And the next step up from this would be a 6-point, where instead of just one submarine belt, that would have two that would and they mount a little bit differently. So this is a 2x2, and you know, it's kind of like I recommend if you're going to do a Hans device, you definitely have to get a 2-inch shoulder. Even if you get a 3-inch lap, you need to have a 2-inch shoulder. It just sits in there a lot better. And this is what's called a cam lock. It kind of just hit the button, everything falls apart, which is pretty cool. And then just to put everything back in place, it's just a matter of click. That's all there is to it. You just go right and click them in one at a time, and away you go. Now, what I recommend is when you're getting ready to go out, it's always better if you have somebody to help you. If your seat's on a slider, or even if you've got a power seat, I would put it back just a teeny bit from where you normally drive, and get the lap belts. Get the lap belts first. Get them absolutely as tight as you can get them. You cannot get them too tight. Then take your shoulder straps and get them tight. And then if it's a power seat, just move the seat up just a little bit. That gives you gets more tension on the belts. Or if you got slider, just go up to the next notch. That's what I do with my rate seats in the car and a slider. You know, I'll put it back and have somebody help me. You know, really hard to push it up that way. I'm super restrained. You absolutely cannot get belts too tight. And the only thing that's worse than not having a belt is having loose belts. They have to be tight. That's all there is to it. So you've got we talked about the 2-inch and the impact that we have. That I don't know if you saw this. This is like really good stuff. I mean, this is super high quality. I'll wind it up. But you can see that just with the webbing and everything, they're really well made. It's got a high quality cam, and it's got easy shoulder tighten and release. That's one of the things I used to hate, is trying to get the shoulder straps. If I forget to undo them, when I come in and just unbuckle my belt, then you sort of have to undo them and stretch them out. And it used to be just a real pain. But with these types of releases, it's really easy. And another thing I always do is I'll get strapped in. By the time I get up to pit lane, I've moved around a little bit. I'll grab one of my shoulder harnesses, and I'll hold on to it and hold it with one hand, take the other arm and push down a lever just to make sure it's super tight, and then go to the other one, the same thing, push down with your other arm. It works better than just trying to pull down one hand. You use two to pull it down like that. So there's a couple of tips. So we've talked about the head and neck, and we've talked about the 2-inch by 2-inch, which is, I think, the best. If at the very least you get a 2-inch shoulder and 3-inch lap belt, or if you're just like a novice and you're not really planning on moving up to advanced, or even just if you're going to be a novice for a couple of years, you need to get at least the 4-point. The 4-point rally harnesses, they make you can't believe the difference it'll make in your driving. As soon as you stop trying to brace yourself and move around, you're going to be focused 100% on driving. And kind of that's what we talked about, is the need to focus on your driving. Your braking, your turn in, your apex, your track out. And if you're locked in place, that's easier to do. The next step up from that is a racing seat. Now, if you've got a standard seat in your car, you can still use the 4 points. When you want to move up, your choices are to going like a Recaro type, and we've got a Sparco. We're going to put Sparco on our website. That's a Recaro type of seat. It's like a standard seat. I mean, the back goes up and down. It's not fixed. It's got some nice upholstery on it and cushioning. But then the next step up is going to be like a club. I call them club seats. We're not recommending the race seats. The race seats have the big halos that come around, and it might look pretty cool in a car, but unless you've got a steering wheel that detaches, you're going to play hell trying to get out of the car if you've got a race seat on there. So the next step down from that, in between like the sports seat, let's call them, like a Recaro, And a race seat is what I call a club seat. And it's a fixed seat. I mean, it's just a shell, and it's got a bolstering on the bottom around your thighs and your shoulders, and you kind of sit down in there, and you're in. I mean, you don't sit on it, you sit in it. The one I had in my car was the OMP Champ, which worked really, really well. I mean, they're a super seat for holding you in place, and they're not that difficult to get in and out of, which is important, especially if you drive a car in the street sometimes. You want to be able to get in and out without causing a fuss. With those seats, though, with a true like club seat or race seat, they don't mount on a normal like a normal seat does. They have what's called a side mount, and I got some somewhere I was going to show you, but I forgot. It's a side mount that goes in the side of the seats, and have multiple holes that you can adjust it up and down, and then that goes on to the way we do it. It goes onto a slider, so you can slide the seat forward and back, and then that'll go onto a base that bolts onto where the original seat belt was. And what I always do is I'll come in and I'll loosen the shoulder straps first, and then hit the slider and slide all the way back. It's so much easier to have a car if you slide the seat all the way back, especially when you're coming off track and you're tired. So that's another little trick that'll help. When you come in, definitely loosen your shoulder straps first, because if you don't, you're gonna, oh man, you gotta unloosen them by next time you get in. And then your lap belts, if you slide back, I wouldn't adjust them. I would just unhook them, because then when you get in the car next time, you just hook them back up and then slide the seat forward, because it's more difficult to adjust your lap belts than your shoulder straps. And then you just have to get your shoulder straps at the very last, everything's really tight, up one notch, or just move the power seat up, and you're good to go. So there's some on the restraints, head restraint, very important. A good set of harness belts is really important. I mean, that's part of driving. I mean, you can't just look at improving the performance of the car. You always need to be thinking about improving the performance of you, the driver. And harness belts will do that, as well as a proper seat. So that's kind of like the Steve. I hope I answered your questions this morning.
Do you want to read over his questions?
I read his question.
Okay, good.
And one more thing that Steve sent in. I don't know if I do it. Anyway, Steve sent in a little tip that I'm gonna share with you guys. It's something I talked about like weeks and weeks ago. He was at a track event, and he was going to put air in his tires, and he had the little rubber valve stems. And when he went to put air in, he could hear a little bit of hiss. So there happened to be somebody that was doing tire changes there, and he went over and he had them install a steel valve stem. Really important. Rubber valve stems can leak. Steel valve stems are what all race wheels get. And he switched over to steel stem, which they kind of screw down with a nut, which keeps them nice and tight so they don't leak air. And he liked that so much, he got all the rest of his tires with the steel valve stems. And if you can, always put nitrogen in your tires. We talked about that. You get much better tire temperatures and pressure. They stay more consistent. You don't have to worry about how much air vapor is in there and kind of screwing up with your expansion. So that's a big tip. Now here's the other part of that. That also becomes part of your nut and bolt check. Is you get a deep well socket and just kind of slide it on there and just make sure that nut's tight. Because like everything else, I mean, track cars, race cars, there is a tremendous amount of vibration. And vibration makes things loosen up. And that's why we do nut and bolt checks. I mean, anybody that really does nut and bolt checks finds out that, yeah, things do loosen up. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast. No matter how good you think it's on there, something's going to loosen up. That's just the way it is. So we got through that. If you're just joining us, I'm Kenny Brown. This is Cars and Coffee. This morning we're talking about head and neck restraints and some harness belts. If you missed that, you can catch it in rerun. But the next session, of course, we're going to answer your questions. If you guys have questions, we'll try to answer some of those if we have time. And of course, my new surroundings. We've gone to a camera and a little better lighting. We're getting ready for the Speed Therapy Academy, which again starts August 4th. And that's going to be I'm really looking forward to it. Actually, we did, this is the prototype. The other shirt's coming in. I showed you the first notebook. I did my first interview this past week. And anybody that joins the Academy, where you start with, we have an interview, like on, we were using Zoom, but we're actually looking at something different because we wanted to have Ben O'Connor, who's just a super expert on safety. And actually, he's going to be one of our master class people in the Academy. But we want to have a little just do a little 15-minute thing with him. But they have Impact has government contracts, and they cannot use Zoom because apparently Zoom is owned by the Chinese. So we're looking at different, or temporarily we'll keep using Zoom. We're looking at different format for the interviews. Anyway, what I do is we set up a half-hour interview. I want to learn more about you, your car, what you've done to your car, what you want to do to your car, where you want to head with your car, because it's like I sort of have the curriculum organized, but it's not finalized. And that's going to happen when I get after I do all the interviews. I'm going to have a pretty good idea of what everybody's looking for. And that way I can sort of custom craft what this Academy is going to be about. So that's kind of a cool thing. And then, yeah, so if you haven't signed up, sign up. I think we're doing, Carrie's got more interviews lined up for me this week. Oh, yeah, and then there's going to be learning and coaching sessions.
Well, tell them what's in it. Every week.
Okay. Every week, I can't do this without her. Every week there's like a Tuesday and Thursday evening, and Tuesday is going to be, we'll call it immersion. We're going to take a subject and kind of really try to dive down deep, talk more deeper. A lot of things we've talked about in Cars and Coffee and in the workshop, we're going to like single individual subjects out and just do a much deeper dive on them, talk more detail, give you more information. And then on Thursdays, then we'll want to do kind of like coaching, where we'll have, it'll either be, it depends, sometimes it'll be question and answers, and sometimes it'll be, we'll take one person and do a coaching session where we'll talk to them about what they're doing or a problem they're having. And while I'm coaching that person, everybody else is going to be listening. So that, they're going to learn what we're talking about. And then when they're being coached, everybody else is going to learn what we're talking about. The whole idea of that is that to put the whole subject matter more into real life context. And by interviewing, by doing like a coaching with everybody and have everybody else listen, I mean, it's just going to add more information, because probably things will come up that, I won't remember to talk about in the immersion class. And then we're going to have a master class, which will probably be on Wednesday afternoons right now. I'm not sure, but definitely we're going to have like Ben O'Connor that I just mentioned, who's just, I mean, he could talk for more than an hour just on restraint systems. And we'll have people like him, Steve Sharp from Forge on Wheels. We're going to have Dan that's going to do some driver.
Yeah, Doug Vanderbrink.
Doug Vanderbrink is going to do some driving stuff. So, and we're lining up some more people. I think Rick from Bear Brakes is going to do a master class. So we're going to just be not really give you information overload, but give you a lot of information, which is why you need a notebook. So you write this down. You know how crazy I am about notebooks and writing things down. So, okay. Now, oh yeah, and a nifty little t-shirt or polo shirt. So, okay, let's move on to the show and tell portion of this week, which is, move some things out of the way. The ultimate, and I mean the ultimate track day or club racing coil-over spring and shock package. Carrie, can you hand me the box? Okay. And I guess you can pretty much figure out what's in this box. That's the box that GRZ's come in. I mean, I keep telling you people, this is our premium shock absorber, and and I'm going to share a little bit with you why. Now that's a pretty nifty box. Now when the shocks come here, they're completely mounted in foam, so nothing moves. But what I do before you get the shocks, I'll get them all set up, I'll get them all put together. I'll do the initial adjustment. You'll get a setup sheet that goes with it, and then we'll package them up and then ship them off to you. So it's just kind of like install. So the set that I want to show you today is the RS Pro, which is a double adjustable with a remote canister. And this is what they look like for an S197. And see, you've got the hose for the remote canister. And the way I set them up is we talked about the torsion release bearing on the bottom, the main spring, the helper spring to keep it in place. And then, of course, we've got the camber plate on top, and then the rebound adjustments on top of that. And I've got taped on here, so I won't forget to tell you. They come with a spanner wrench to adjust the ride height. But what I include is a 1.5 millimeter Allen. And what that's for is, for taking the rebound adjustments off and on. And what I do, this is a small Allen, and in my toolbox, I put a piece of blue tape on it, so I don't have to every time go digging to figure out which one it was, or if I keep it someplace, it doesn't get lost. And it's harder to lose Allen wrench with blue tape on it. So that's kind of the double adjustable front. And then the canister. And the canister is the bump adjust. The rebound is on the top. But what also makes these kind of cool, notebook, is of course you get stickers. I mean, where could you go without stickers? Lots of stickers. And then we throw the iBox spring stickers in with that too. It comes with an instruction guide. That doesn't show up very well. And it's really cool when you open the box. There's two of these little foam pads on the very top. And they're for if you're setting if you're setting a shock on the bench, you got something to set it on. But the other pad, I don't know if you can see this. It actually, it's pretty faint. It comes. This is signed by, can't read his name, but he was hand built and tested by this person, and this person over here signed off on it. So when I say these are custom built to order, I mean these are custom built to order. So you're going to know who built your shock, even though you can't read it. You can't read anybody's signature, really. So that's the front. You've got the remote canister, and this is something that's kind of I like ordering. This is a quick disconnect, and the reason is you've got to mount this canister somewhere, typically inside the car, under the hood someplace where you can get to it easily, or in the trunk where you can get to it easily. And to get it there, if you didn't have a quick disconnect, you're going to have to make like a 3-inch hole to pass this whole thing through, and you got a 3-inch hole to plug. But with the quick disconnect, you're down to like maybe 1.5 inch hole to pass that through. And when you do, you always want to, anytime you put a hole through a body, and you pass something through it, you always want to get a rubber grommet around the outside of the hole so there's no rough edges. Now, the thing is with these, these are high pressure gas filled. It's nitrogen. And what you have to do is you have to carefully bleed some of the pressure off so you can actually, unbolting it and uncooking it's easy, just to pop apart. But to get it back together, you need to bleed some of the pressure off so that you can actually get them hooked up, and then you can repressure them down here on the bottom. And then on the setup sheet that you get from me, it'll have the initial adjustment. It'll also have the pressures that they're set at initially. And you can play with pressures, and that's something that you don't want to do on your own. You need to talk to me if you're really dialing in shocks. Pressures, I can use pressures to help a few things, but I don't want you to even try to adjust pressure on your own, because this is like, I think it's around 200 pounds of pressure in the front, maybe 180 in the back. I'd have to look on my spec sheet for this set of shocks. So that kind of gives you an idea of how much pressure's in there. And the whole idea of pressure is it helps keep the fluid from cavitating. It just keeps everything locked in place so everything works together. And these are monotube. I think we talked about before, there's like twin tube, regular twin tube low gas pressure, and monotube high gas pressure. Well, this is monotube, which means there's only one tube. Unlike like a street shock that has twin tubes, this is one tube, one valving piece in the middle, and everything adjusts from there. So, and then go to the back. The back is kind of the same. This is the high pressure bump adjust, rebound adjust. Now, I do something special. Any of our coilover shocks that retain the bayonet mount in the original mounting position, because we're putting all the spring load through that mounting point, we go to, instead of rubber, I use a Delrin bushing on the bottom and the hard rubber bushing on top. Just because we're putting a lot of load, and if you've got a rubber bushing, even a urethane bushing, with the amount of load that's going through these things, it's going to squash. So, you know, we started a long time ago, started going to that Delrin, so it's pretty much rock solid. It's going to be locked in place, and then with a softer rubber on top, I'll take a little bit of the NBH out, but not a lot. But we're not considering NBH, we're working on how good the shocks work. And they are just, and these are just brilliant shocks. I mean, they really, really work. Like I say, this is the ultimate set of shocks for track days, or even club racing. I mean, these will work perfect in club racing, more so than some of the other shocks that you can get over the counter. And then if you go into pro racing, then I showed you many weeks back about the motorsport shocks, which are, that takes everything up another level, because their motorsport shocks is their primary business is race shocks, and they built some pretty wickedly awesome race shocks, and they've got huge reputation. In fact, this is on the box, this is their 25th year of building shock absorbers, and the owners of JRZ, and JRZ stands for the names of three people that started it. Actually, they were originally in the Coney racing program, obviously 30 years ago, and then they decided to do their own shock program, which turned out to be amazing. So that's kind of like the ultimate in track day and club racing shocks. I see Gary staring at me like I'm doing something wrong. Oh, no, I'm okay. Okay, so we've got some time for some questions. If we have some questions to come in case you're just joining us, this is Kenny. This is our Cars and Coffee on Saturday mornings, 11 o'clock. We're also asking if people would be interested in us moving to 10 o'clock because it's summertime. So just let us know. I'd be interested to know how many people attended all the workshop, the Transforming Driving Experience workshop. How many people attended that? Because I think everybody got some pretty good value out of that. And but people were a little disappointed that we didn't keep it up that long. Well, I got good news. What Carrie is going to do is she is going to do a blitz of the episodes of the Transforming Your Driving Experience. I believe it's Wednesday and Thursday. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what she's going to do is Wednesday she's going to run days 1, 2, 3. And it's going to run multiple times. Is that correct? We run multiple times on Wednesday, and Thursday is going to be 4, 5, 6, and they'll run multiple times. So you have a chance. This is kind of like a second chance to go back and see the speed therapy. See Transform Your Driving Experience workshop
In the Speed
Therapy Society. So if you're not a member of Speed Therapy Society, please join, because that's where all this stuff's going to happen. And people are members are saying this is a pretty cool group of guys we got here and gals. And that's the whole intent is we're real car people in here. And I love some of the posts. I like the pictures. I really like the comments when people say they put the rear grip kit on and change their car completely, because that's the whole intent. So with that, I think I'll have a sip of coffee and see if we can answer some of your questions.
Okay, so we have one important one I think that we should bring up is Ben O'Connor from Impact Racing Mastercraft is online listening today, which is wonderful.
Hey, Ben.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Ben. And there's a little conversation going on in the comments, and a comment was made that be careful that you don't tighten them too tight, because if you have them connected up to the factory seatbelt, because they'll tighten you another 3 inches. and might break your bones. Well, this is Ben's comment. He said, this is not true. During any event, accident, crash, etc., if the belts are mounted properly, there isn't a single situation where the belts can be too tight. Limiting movement and containment is paramount.
Yep, that's pretty much what I said. You cannot get your belts too tight. And the ones that hook into the factory slots, they don't hook into the retractor. They hook into the permanent one. So yeah, you can't get your belts too tight. Remember, put your seat back, get them as tight as you can, and move your seat up and make them even tighter. You just cannot get your belts too tight. Loose belts are a disaster. I mean, if anything, if you have any kind of impact and your belts are loose, I mean, it'll be worse. I mean, it'll be a lot worse for you. So yeah, Ben, pretty much what I said, and there you go. You got it from the expert. You cannot get your belts too tight. If I tell you what, if they're too loose, you can crack and break something. I can tell you that, because you're going to have a big boom against something. But if they're tight, nothing's going to happen. Okay.
So also, just I'm going to give a sneak peek. Let me know, or let us know, if you are interested in possibly having like somebody like Ben on Cars and Coffee for about 15-20 minutes, just talking a little bit more. Obviously, Kenny knows a lot about what his trade, but he's not an expert in belts. So it would be great. So let us know. Say yes, I'd like to have some experts.
I mean, we could probably do, if people were interested. We could probably just do most of Cars and Coffee someday with Ben, talking about restraints and that sort of thing.
Part of it, yeah. So just comment if you'd like to have that happen. Okay, another question is from Cliff Glidden. Question: which sliders do you like best for racing seats if they're not mounted solid?
What we have is, because you've got your base that mounts down, the sliders go on top of that, and then the seat brackets on top of that, and then the seat. We have FIA rated sliders, which means they're rated by FIA. So they're not cheap. I mean, they're really good stuff. And we've got them. We get them from O&P. They're really good stuff. And a lot of people say, I don't want a slider. I want to mount my seat solid. Well, yeah, good luck with that. If you're not racing, you're going to be somehow. You're going to say, oh, I don't like this. Or I don't like that. A slider is, if nothing else, it's the best way to tighten up your belts. So we have FIA homologated sliders that go between the base and the seat.
Okay, here's another question. This is another response from Ben. This is maybe why we should have some guest speakers on, or guests with you. Ben O'Connor, the stipulation is mounted properly. If shoulders are mounted too low, tighter may work against you in a forward event, as it can promote spinal compression. However, there's more of an effect of the restraints being mounted too low than too tight. That must still be balanced with forward momentum, though. Objects in motion stay in motion. You want to arrest your motion of the occupant as soon and as effectively or efficiently as possible. I believe what Schrodt is referring to is the misconception that the shoulder restraints are used to prevent upward for the roof motion in a rollover event. This is not true. I'll explain more in depth during the academy. Yeah, he's going to be doing the master class during the academy.
I told you guys, I said this guy's an expert. Now you understand what I mean.
And Chris Melitu, say hi to Chris. He's been on for a while. I had an Impact Racing helmet, and it was awesome. Thanks.
Well, there we go. There's a plug for Impact Racing helmets. And we've got a pretty reasonably priced one on the website, because everybody's looking to, not be cheap, but not to overspend. I mean, the whole idea, what I like to have people do is, get what you need that's the highest quality for the best price. And you don't need to overspend on things. Anybody that's talked to me on the phone will tell me that they're interested in getting something, one thing. I'll say, your money's better spent on blank. So, I mean, helmets, you can spend over $1,000 for a helmet. We've got the Impact, and then there's an O&P helmet we've got on there.
And so Mike Piercy also says you don't want a loose-fitting helmet either.
Now, that's another point. I mean, you want your helmet to be snug. And there's I think there might be charts. If not, we'll figure out where one is. How to measure. You can kind of measure around here for your helmet. And the good quality helmets are going to be pretty true to size. the lesser quality helmets. I had one a number of years ago that I came across. I can't remember the circumstances, but I ended up with this, I would say, level 2 helmet, and they only came like in a couple sizes, and the sizes were all wrong. I don't know whose head they used, but the medium was like, I couldn't even get a medium on, and the large was almost a little too loose. So that's where you need to make an investment in something quality, is in any kind of safety gear for yourself. And remember, the other safety gear is shoes, dancing shoes, and gloves to go with your helmet. Very important things. You get your dancing shoes, your gloves, and your harness, and a good helmet. And I absolutely guarantee your lap times will go down. You won't be as tired at the end of the session. So that all has to do with safety. Okay.
Okay. So anyway, here we go. Jim Jewell. When are you going to do classes on each specific generation of Mustang? I can answer that one unless you know it.
No, I guess I don't know, but you do.
Jim, we're going to do that as soon as we get the Speed Therapy Academy started, because that's a big effort we're putting in right now. And as soon as that happens, we will probably have the first class sometime in August.
Probably a little later in August,
yeah.
I would guess.
Why don't you kind of tell them a little bit what that is for new viewers?
What that is I'm going to take like one day and just talk about, let's say, SN95 Mustangs. Kind of go through all the way through SN95 Mustangs. Another one we'll do S197. Okay, SN95 is 94 to 04. S197 is 05 to 14. And S550 is 15 on. So we'll take one day and just focus on one specific car. Now, the Fox we would throw in with SN95 because they're sort of the same car in a lot of ways. So that's what we're talking about, just a single class, a single car day. That'll be coming up, days will be coming up later in August.
Okay, okay, excellent point on the helmet. He said for the same reason as not having loose restraints. Okay, Brad, we use Mastercraft safety, impact racing seats, and harnesses in our Baja Challenge cars, and there was no better product available for serious off-road racing. Wow, lots of really positive comments on impact and Mastercraft. That's great. Okay, Tim Tomasak, Laguna Seca has rear seat delete with the cross brace that uses the outboard rear belt holster at attach point. Unfortunately, the Pro Series doesn't have a location to mount. Oh, I thought it was a question. Do you have any comments on that? Or
no, I'm not. I'd have to think about what he's actually saying.
Okay. Okay, and then we also have a question I just missed.
Hurry up.
It was from Del Hughes. He wants to know if the JRZs are available for SN95 cars.
Unfortunately, no. Just S197 and 550s. For the SN95 cars, however, I actually have coil-over shocks, custom built for me, with my valving by Strange. And I say by my valving, I've got, a few weeks back, I showed my notebook that's just full of shock dyno sheets. And what I did is I took my dyno sheets that I like the best, actually close to what the JRZs are. And I took those to Strange. I went to Dimitri, said, can you build a shock with these in there? And he said, yes, you can do it. So we've actually got, Strange is pretty much a drag racing company, and their front struts are like drag racing struts, low spring rates, and they do kind of things that you don't even want to know about. So they actually custom build these with the valving that is very similar to, say, for example, the Coney's I've used, the JRZs, and a couple other like the better shocks I use, the valving. So yeah, we've got the and they're true coilovers. Now with the KB Strange, the fronts are only available in double adjustable. The rears are available either in single or double adjustable, either for IRS cars or for live axle cars. So we got SN95, don't have JRZs, but we got SN95 covered with a good shock, coilover shock.
Okay, and then we have another one from Chris. I believe it is Chris. I go back and forth here. Chris Militude. What is the difference between those and the JRZs without the canisters?
Okay, a couple of things. JRZs come in 3 flavors: single adjustable, double adjustable, and the RS Pro, which is double adjustable with a canister. The single adjustable and the regular double adjustables are both twin tube shocks. The Pro is a monotube shock, and that's the big difference. Plus, it's got the remote canister, which is the bump adjust. Which, you know, if you're in motorsports, I mean, the last thing you want to do is climb underneath the car to adjust the bump and just pop the hood and make a click or two. So the big difference is twin tube versus monotube, and monotube with the remote canister for bump adjust. So that's kind of the difference. But yeah, like I say, these are we've used these on some of our premium track cars, and man, they really work.
Yeah, Chris Melitu actually said JRZ, unbelievable shocks.
Thank you, Chris.
And Chris, tell a little bit about how Chris did his package. We shipped everything in the house.
Yeah, actually, we did something unique with Chris. We called it, you know, kind of like Kenny in a box, or actually Kenny in a pallet. We shipped him everything he needed to build his car on a pallet, and he took it to his local Ford dealership to have it installed. We had to maybe go back and redo a few things, but nevertheless, you know, we can do that. I mean, you want to do your own car, you know, we can pile everything on a pallet and ship it to you. I've got we've got somebody we're doing that for right now. I'm working on a specific package for Mick down in Australia. He's going to set up a Fox Mustang to race in there in one of their series down there. And anybody that's watched Australia racing, they don't have NASCAR. They take road racing very seriously. So he's going to set up a Fox. So I'm putting together a package with like strain shocks, our K-member, and some other things specifically for that application. It's all going to go on a pallet. I'm going to ship it to them. We also did that for somebody in New Zealand.
Yeah.
We put the whole suspension on a pallet and then shipped it to New Zealand. So
we do it for a number of people, but those
those kind of like those notable ones.
Okay, and then Ernie would like Abercrombie would like us to. He's talked to me about this, so I don't think I've mentioned it to you.
Okay,
yet.
here it comes.
He'd like to set up some kind of a Kenny Brown race HPDE team, like NASA or SCCA or Auto Interest. He wants you and a bunch of the Kenny Brown people here to go have a number of events throughout the year.
We've talked about that, and then like last year we were too busy to do any track days. This year we're pretty busy as well. It's something we talked about maybe doing next year because this is a kind of a contracted season, and you know, we've got the academy right in the middle of it. So I mean, it's something that off, you know, on the side we have talked about more than once about doing kind of like our own event. We used to do that back in the 90s. We used to partner with Muscle Mustangs magazine, and we did like about 3 events a year where we partnered with them. And then we also partnered with one of the driving clubs, and it worked out really well. I think the one I liked the best is we used to go to Watkins Glen every October. We had T-shirts that said Ken at the Glen. So yeah, we want to get back to that. Unfortunately, our plates are really full right now, but it's on the wish list, bucket list. Take your pick. It's in there.
Okay, and then Tim Tomasak, he would like to hear about pros and cons for a belt bar versus a Watson bolt-in cage. Or just a bar to hold the belts.
Pros and cons.
Yeah.
Well, the big thing, I mean, there's no real comparison. I mean, a harness bar just kind of goes across, and you can use it to put your harness in. It's not a structural part of the car. Where the Watson 4-point cage, which we use, we put it in a lot of cars, and it's a great product. I mean, that's structural. I mean, that actually bolts to the car rock solid. So I mean, if you're wavering between the two, go for the cage, especially if you've got rear seat delete. I mean, it makes more sense. You've got multiple options for your seat belts. I mean, even if you don't do your shoulder strap wrap over the crossbar, you can actually use the crossbar to go back and then down, which will keep your belts in a much better position. So there we go.
Okay, and on that same subject, Jim Jewell mentions that for a Boss 302 Laguna Seca and Schroet contact, they have a great customer service and might have an answer. My thought is if you can pull out the rear seat delete, you might be able to mount where the rear seat belt would be.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a hard point.
Yeah.
I mean the Schroet belts go right into the existing seat belt things, and if you pull the rear seat out, then you've got the bolts that hold the rear seat belts in place, which they're hard points. I mean, you can that makes a perfect mounting point because you know that's super rigid and strong.
Okay, and then Brian West has a question. What are inverted shocks and how applied to our cars? How do they apply to our?
Inverted shocks, you have to have a monotube high pressure gas to invert the shocks, and that's just mounting it upside down. Now, with S197, because of the upper mount, we can do an inverted shock, but what we would have to do is we would have to convert to a clevis mount on the top. But on the S550 cars, the Pro 4, the RS Pros, they are inverted in the back. So inverted is you have to have a monotube, a high pressure gas shock to invert. I mean, the advantage, from what we do is minimal, but in real life, it would reduce unsprung weight. So yeah, high pressure monotube, you can invert them. If somebody wanted these for S197 and wanted them inverted, we can do that. That's obviously an added expense, but we can do that. Oh, you know what I forgot to mention? This is really cool. Chris kind of went all out on these. I don't know if you can see the shaft, but it really isn't shiny silver. It's shiny black. What he did the option of low friction coating. Because he's sort of an engineering student, and he knows that friction makes heat and resistance. So he went with low friction, actually went with a bigger shaft too. JRZ has the option of going to a bigger shaft on the strut. Well, just, on the strut, bigger is better. And also the low friction coating. So, I mean, that's going to slide. I mean, the reaction time is going to be just incredible because there's going to be virtually no resistance on the shaft within the seals. So that's a couple of cool things. I keep telling you, these shocks are really cool. A couple of things I forgot to mention. Okay?
Okay, and then you forgot there was a question from a Speed Therapy Society person it's on your paper that I think you forgot to answer.
Where'd my paper go?
On the springs in the sway bar? Okay.
Yeah, this is a good question. This is from Chris. And this is a really good question. It says stiff springs, small sway bar versus soft springs and big sway bar on dual purpose cars. Well, I can tell you, you can ask 10 people that question and you're going to get 10 different answers. Everybody has a favorite way of doing it. I'm going to say nothing is wrong. It's whatever works. I know that I think it was Herb Adams back in the day, he went with big bars and soft springs. Now me, what my preference is, and it's just solely me, is the way I look at it is the sway bar is really a torsion bar, which means it's a spring. It's a third spring, either in the front or the back. Well, we don't use them on the back in S197s. If you got the rear grip kit, and anybody that's got that on there knows you don't need the rear sway bar. But like on the front, that's a torsion bar, and that try to helps transfer load from one side to the other. The way I look at it is I would use a firmer spring and an adjustable bar for multiple use. So you get set soft for the street and firm for the track, or however it works. It just depends on you driving your car. There's a lot of variables in adjusting that. But the way I think of it is the spring on the shock. You've got the shock controlling the spring. So the shock indirectly controls the sway bar because it's an added spring, but the shock controls the spring itself. So that's why I would rather go with a higher rate spring, because I've got 100% control of that shock spring on the shock, and a smaller bar, but preferably a bar with adjustments, so you can go either way. And if somebody wants to go set something up for dual purpose, what I do, like for individuals, I pick the spring rate for individual people. You can't just order this online and get one spring rate. Everyone is a different spring rate depending on what you're doing. And for like, I'm getting a set of jerseys coming in soon for, who is it that's getting another set coming in?
Jim Flattery.
Jim Flattery, and he wants to do both ways plus he wants to be sure that his wife is comfortable. So what I've done is I've gone to a little softer spring. I've gone to like a 500-pound spring versus the 650 for a track car, or 400 for a performance street. I got one in the middle, and the JRZ valving will make it ride really nice. Just turn it down, and if he wants to go to the track, then you can turn it up. Also for Chris, because he's just starting out, and he's got a V6, which means the front of the car is lighter. I chose a 500-pound spring for him as well. And it's really easy at some point to go up on spring rate, but seeing as the front of the car is light with a V6 and he's starting out, the 500-pound spring is going to work really well to make the car really easy to drive. And that's kind of like, you don't want to start out with a car that's like a demon. You want a car that's easy to drive so you can learn your braking points, your line, and all that. And then when you get better and better, then we can go up a spring rate, because the more spring rates you add, we talked about this, the faster the car gets. But there's also a law of diminishing returns. The more spring rate you run, your window for error starts shrinking and shrinking and shrinking really fast. Like your window for error on street shocks is like this. On performance shocks, street shocks are like that. For like our intermediate shocks is like that. And track shocks is like that. And race shocks is like that. So that's why I like starting people soft. Learn to drive the car. Work on your skill set, and then we'll go up on spring rate. I know I forget this. Remember to like Cars and Coffee episode and click the like button at the top of the live session. And I think we need
for Facebook.
For Facebook, and for YouTube, it's for YouTube people. And yeah, this is a big day for us. I mean, we're simulcasting live on YouTube and Facebook Live. For our YouTube people, subscribe and click. You got to explain this to me again. The bell is to subscribe.
No, you hit the subscribe button to subscribe.
Subscribe button is to subscribe. The bell is to get notices.
Notices. Yeah.
And then there's that
they can like it also.
And there's a like button.
Yeah.
Got that all in. Whew. Just made it under the bell.
Yeah, under the bell. Why don't you tell them a little bit about the blitz we're having on Wednesday and Thursday?
Okay, I'll reiterate the blitz again. Wednesday and Thursday. We're going, for people that missed it, we're going to rerun the speed transforming your driving experience workshop. All these words, you just get them mixed up. Transforming your driving experience workshop. We're going to do a blitz Thursday and Friday. Wednesday, we're going to go from sessions 1, 2, and 3. Thursday is 4, 5, and 6, and we'll just be running constantly all day.
And that's on Speed Therapy Society?
In Speed Therapy Society.
So if you're not there, join.
If you're not there, join. And we've got to go, because I just got to notice that my battery is running low. So I hope this new look everybody liked, and that I need to figure out how to click buttons here. This is all new for me, but I hope everybody enjoyed it. And we will see you next Saturday at 11, unless you guys want to go at 10 o'clock. I mean, we're more than happy to do that, because it's summer and Saturdays. If you want to get out and do things now, I can get out and do things. So listen, I really, you guys are great. I mean, it's the comments, the likes, the thumbs up, everything. And the Speed Therapy Society is really getting cool. The Academy's coming up in August. If you think you might be interested, certainly don't hesitate. If you want more information, call in and set up one of our 15-minute conference calls with me or with Carrie. And with that, we will see you next week. Stay safe and have fun with your cars.